Do you guys want to keep Neocaridina shrimp like cherry shrimp, blue velvets, blue dreams, orange sunkissed, so many different options? If you want to keep them, the one big question that you should be asking is what type of water parameters should I keep them in? Now we're going to go over here, TDS, temperature, pH, GHK, everything that you need to know to set up your tank for success if you're looking to get some Neocaridina shrimp. What is going on, shrimp viewers? Today is all about Neocaridina shrimp. So we are currently in our basement of our warehouse where we have about 50 to 60 of these 275-gallon IBC totes. And that's where we keep our Neocaridina shrimp, AKA cherry shrimp, orange pumpkins, so on and so forth, all the different colors. Even a mono shrimp are kept on here, even though they're not technically a Neocaridina shrimp. And so we're gonna go over their water parameters today and share with you guys how we keep them and how you can keep them successfully at home with every water parameter dialed in and spelled out for you, what they mean and how to apply them to your shrimp keeping journey. So let's get into today's video. All right, so the very first question that you're gonna ask yourself is temperature. So what temperature do you need to keep these shrimp at? So I mentioned earlier, we keep all of our Neocaridina ponds, IBC totes, whatever you want to call them, we keep them in the basement of our warehouse. And the reason for that is these guys like cool water. So the warmest we ever let these get is 72 degrees. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be kept higher than 72 degrees because these guys can actually survive probably up to like 80. I mean, you probably could go higher than that if you really wanted to. The only thing that you risk is bacterial infection. So the higher the temperature, the more likely they are to get a bacterial infection. Last week, we talked all about bacterial infections and how to treat them if you guys want to check out that video. But in today's video, we are focused on just parameters. So temperature 68, 72 is the best temperature you can keep them at. The higher the temperature, the more they're gonna breed, the more they're gonna eat, the higher the risk of something going wrong. The lower the temperature, it's gonna slow them down. They're not gonna eat as much, they're not gonna breed as fast. And so for me, 68, 72 is the perfect window to optimize your breeding. And that is where you're gonna find the most success with the smallest amount of risk. Before we get into the next step, I do wanna point something out. So if you watch this video and you don't plan on buying from Flip, that is completely fine. Now, in no way am I gonna tell you, hey, you have to buy from Flipaquatics. I really, truly feel like you need to buy from your local sources, especially local breeders if you have them. If you don't have an option to buy shrimp, please feel free to buy from Flipaquatics. We'd love to have your business and we'd love to support you. But the reason I bring that up is because how we keep and breed our Neocaridina shrimp might be completely different from how the person you're gonna buy them from is. So if you plan on buying them from someone else, it's best to reach out to a company or whoever you plan on working with, ask them how they keep their shrimp, and that's where it's gonna give you the highest chance of success. So I'm gonna share with you what we do, and that could be applied to most Neocaridina shrimp and cherry shrimp and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to leave that out there that not one size shoe fits all. Neocaridina shrimp, it's more likely that one size will fit all, but like next week, if we talk about Caridina shrimp, it might be like a little bit different from one company to another. So do know that, but I will give you all the parameters that we are currently keeping our shrimp at, so hopefully you can have success at home. The second thing that we're gonna be talking about is pH. So pH, we got here a pH probe. This is a Apera, A-P-E-R-A pH probe. That's the one that we found is the most like, I don't want to say accurate, but it is very accurate. The thing about it is it reads pH the quickest and it's most reliable long-term. So I don't think you need to have one of these pH pens because I want to say they're around $100, maybe a little bit more. And then the actual probe that goes on the tip, they go bad like once a year, depending on how much you use them. And so you do have to replace it, say once a year, and they're about $30, I want to say. And so I want to show you this pH is reading 7.60. Now the temperature is reading 66.4. That's because it is winter time and it's cold down here. And so the floor stays pretty cold. 66 degrees isn't too cold for them. It just kind of slows them down a little bit. So I'd much rather than be at 66 degrees than be at 76 degrees. So I'd much rather be cooler. So the pH is going up. It looks like it's going to be stable at 7.75. So 7.75, that's our pH down here. Now, the thing about Neocaridina shrimp is they do not want soft water. Now, what's considered soft water, in my opinion, is water that has a pH of less than 7. So it's usually considered acidic. We want alkaline water. So this is 7.75, which means it's on the higher side, so it'd be alkaline. Now, as far as hardness goes, it might not be telling you the truth. So like pH doesn't always tell you whether it's hard or soft. So it's a little bit of a misconception that I even used at the beginning of this. So we want alkaline water. Now it doesn't have to be 7.75. It could be anywhere from, 7 all the way up to 8. When you start getting over 8, that's when you start running into some issues. At least that's when we run into issues. So I would encourage you to be in the sweet spot of like 7.2 to 7.8. That is what I'd recommend. Now you can use the API test kits to determine your pH. You can use the Fritz, that's what we use, Fritz Aquatics. We use their pH test kit, which is just a dropper. I'm not gonna do that on video because it's a little bit of a process, but you guys can look that up. Or you can invest in one of these pH pens. Again, APERA. We'll put that link down in the description. It's not gonna be an affiliate link. It's just if you guys are interested and wanna see what we use, you can get it for yourself. But next, we're gonna dive into hardness, GH and KH specifically, and that's where we're gonna touch on what you need to have for your shrimp to be successful. The next thing, this is literally the most important part of shrimp keeping. Now, the other things are pretty basic. Most likely your water is gonna fit into that temperature range and that pH range for the most part, especially if you're using well water, tap water. I don't always encourage those things. RO water is the foolproof way. We have a whole video on that. I'll try to link it down below, but I won't dive too much into it today. So next up is the GH and KH. Now, GH stands for general hardness, KH stands for carbonate hardness. Now, the ideal ratio is 2 GH for every 1 KH. For us, we keep our tanks at 10 GH, 5 KH. That is the most ideal thing that we could do. There's ways to manipulate your water parameters. I'll show you in a little bit, but I did want to show you these 2 tests. So these are the 2 tests you're going to need. Granted, you don't have to use this brand, but this is the brand that we use, Fritz Aquatics. We have a really great relationship with them. We're not sponsored, just in full transparency. It's just the brand that we use because they're always great to us, and I really like them. Shout out to Jacob over there at Fritz. So first of all, KH is carbonate hardness. That's basically the stability of your pH. So if you have a higher pH, most likely it's because you have a decent amount of KH in your water. 5 KH is ideal for shrimp. The reason being is it creates stability, and also your live bacteria, which is a part of the nitrogen cycle. So the bacteria that lives in your filter that processes, sorry about my phone, the bacteria that lives in your filter that processes ammonia into NO2 and then into NO3 actually consumes KH, and that's what it uses as the building block of the nitrogen cycle. So you need to have it in your tank. 5 is a good number. That's why I always recommend it. And because of that, now you need 10 GH. That's what I found to be the most successful. That's what we use here at Flipaquatics. And these tests are so easy. It's literally, you have a little test tube, you have 5 milliliters of water, you put the dropper in there, you drip 1 drop at a time, and however many drops it takes for you to change the solution to a different color, that's how much degree hardness you have. Now, you might have a test at home that might be like parts per million, which you might be like, hey, like my GH is 180. What does that mean? Well, 180, it's actually 18.2, I believe is the exact, don't quote me on this, but 18.2 is parts per million to degrees. So 18.2 would be 1 degree hardness. So when I say 10 and 5, that's degrees hardness, not parts per million. So you can reverse engineer it. 10 would be 180 or 182, and then 5 would be half of that. So it'd be 90 basically for the KH. So that just gives you a rough overview. I will show you what we use to manipulate our water parameters here at Flipaquatics to make sure they fall within that range. I got the whole team behind me. Got to give a shout out. We got Liv over here supervising. We got Lauren on the ground picking plants out of pots, getting them ready to go. We got Shallon putting them away. I think Lexi's down here somewhere. We got Dinah hiding over there. So the whole team's working, so I got to give them a shout out. Shout out to the Flipaquatics team. But I did want to share these. So this is how we manipulate the parameters. So first step is diagnosing what your parameters are. Let's say that you have a GH in your water, but you have no KH. Instead of like just using RO water to completely redo your water parameters, you can use this. So shrimple KH, shrimple GH. One pump per 10 gallons increases it by 1 degree. We try to make it super easy. The biggest thing, if you're gonna use any type of remineralizer at home, this is considered a remineralizer, do not dose it directly to your tank. That's the worst thing you could do because it's gonna change your parameters so quickly, your animals are gonna suffer because of it. The shrimp are gonna molt, they're gonna be stressed out, they're probably gonna die. Always add it to water change water only. And so if you have a tank that you have set up and maybe it wasn't right and there's no animals currently in there, dose it directly in the tank, you're fine. But the one thing to know is, oh, this one's our KH. This stuff is powerful. It will increase your pH a lot. So then you have to kind of like let it run its course, let the pH slowly drop back down. This stuff is very potent, so use it sparingly. Say that. Now this stuff we use for all of our fish. I don't have a pump top on this because we actually use it by like, this is 500 milliliters. We use it 250 milliliters at a time to remineralize a whole 275 gallon tote. But this is what you could use to fix your GH and KH. Now this is a Flipaquatics brand, so shameless plug, not gonna lie. But it is a great product, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. So let's move on to the last parameter that you need to be worried about in your shrimp keeping journey. The last parameter is TDS, which stands for total dissolved solids. Now, I say this one for last because it's the trickiest, or maybe not the trickiest, but it's at least the most deceiving parameter out of all of them. So this is one that if people live and die by this, they're not gonna have success in my opinion. So I did turn off the pond because I actually want you to see that there really are Neocaridina shrimp down here. We made it this long in the video and we didn't show it. Maybe Em edited in some B-roll. Thank you, Em, you're the best. But if she didn't, you haven't seen any shrimp along this journey. So first of all, let me say, last week we went in depth on TDS. It's TDS 101. Look that video up, check the playlist down below. It is a Shrimp Saturday video. So you guys can learn more. Actually, that was 2 weeks ago. So you guys can learn more about that. But I did want to show you why this is so misleading. So if you look up online right now, people will say 200 TDS is probably the best for Neocaridina shrimp. We got 148. We're not even close. We're 50 off. We're 25% off of what people recommend. Here's the reason. TDS. You have no idea what is in the TDS. So if you have all the proper minerals, everything in there that's perfect, and your TDS is 150, you're good. But if you don't, then you need more TDS. So total dissolved solids takes in the GH, it takes in the KH, and it takes in any minerals, any dissolved solids that are in the water. So for example, distilled water, RO water should have a TDS of 0. 99% of the time, it has a TDS of 10 or less. So do know that. There's a lot of ways to use TDS, but as a overall parameter, I would say it's a good guide, but it only used in certain ways. For the most part, like me testing this tank and knowing that's 148, 150 means very little to most people. So if I said, hey, 150 is your perfect TDS, that really doesn't tell you much. What does matter is your temperature, your pH, your GH, and your KH. Now TDS, could it mean something? Yes. It especially means something if you're remineralizing water, using water from scratch and building it up the way you want it. But as a general rule, it doesn't tell you too much. Now, if you have tap water at home or well water and you test it and your TDS is like 1,000, you probably got some stuff in your water that you don't know about. And then now it's a good guide because it's like, hey, I probably shouldn't use this water because there's probably something bad in there. But if you test your water at home and it's 100, there's odds are that you can use a little bit of shrimple GH or KH to fix your water so it's perfect for your shrimp. So that's where TDS comes into play. Don't use TDS as just a general measure what you should be aiming for. Get you a TDS pen, use it as a guide, but refer back to that video that we made 2 weeks ago to really know how to use it. If I had to explain it all again, we'd be here another 20 minutes, so I don't want to do that. But I did want to address TDS and tell you that it only matters in certain situations, but you need to know those situations, and that's why we have a whole video dedicated to TDS. So to recap, we got temperature, 68 to 72, pH, 72 to 78 is ideal. Then we got GH and KH. GH, this is degrees hardness, 10 is what I aim for. And then KH, 5. That's my range. Now, as far as TDS goes, it only matters if you know what it means. But for us, we're at 150. A lot of people recommend 200, which when I remineralize water only, it usually comes out to about 200 TDS. So that's where we're at. If you are gonna get shrimp from Flipaquatics, if you do all those things and match our water parameters, I guarantee you're gonna have some success. Especially with them cherry shrimp, with them blue dreams, a little bit of everything, you're gonna be successful. Hopefully this helps some of you out there. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week. Hopefully you just had a great Thanksgiving, ate some good turkey and pumpkin pie. Can't wait. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. As always, God bless. We'll catch you on the flip side.